You know, I flunked out of school because I couldn't spell, and I tried this on the teacher. I said, it's a very uncreative person that cannot spell a word 3 or 4 different ways, you know. And they still gave me an F, you know. And if you teach a person to fish, you feed them for what? Life. And that's from Sunday school. But because our school system's not teaching anybody to fish, what happens is the capitalists of the world come out and they're selling people fish. Those are financial planners, stockbrokers, real estate brokers, insurance, you know, and everybody's got to make a living. But if you look at the word sell fish, it spells selfish, you know what I mean? And that's my whole complaint, is because exactly as Scott was saying, is that people will come up and they'll only sell you what they make a commission on. And most of them are not investors, they're just commission salespeople or commission employees. And that's why we have so many people who are believing in saving money, getting out of debt, investing for long term and diversifying, because they're really sales pitches. And the last thing I want to say is this, is that, you know, there's a lot of people who believe in giving people fish, and these are the socialists of life. There's nothing wrong with being a socialist. I can't spell that either. But my rich dad said it was the Robin Hood theory of finance. You know, take from the rich and give to the what? Poor. As my rich dad said, the problem with giving poor people money is it just manufactures more poor people. You know, from the president on down, they all expect somebody to give them money all the time. So he says the problem with being Robin Hood, take from the rich and give from the poor, is Robin Hood still a crook. You know, and a lot of people think he's a nice guy and all this, but he was still a thief, stealing for people. So what the Rich Dad Company does is we don't sell investments, but we do our best to teach people to fish. And then you can do it any way you want. So that's what this whole Teach to Be Rich program is about and all this. So with that, one of the questions I'm always asked is, how do I get started? You know, how do I stop being a passive investor, and how do I become an active investor? And since I don't sell stocks or anything, I do sell education. That's why I created this cash flow board game. And I'll quickly go over it really quickly. I designed this cash flow board game. Here is the rat race. And people in the rat race, this is what you go to school to. You know, go to school to get a job, and one of them is rat race. People go inside here, and they buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and they buy a big house. What the rich invest in is out here called the fast track. This was 1933. It was created by the fast track was actually created by a man named Joseph Kennedy, who was the father of President John Kennedy. And the fast track said you had to be a multi-millionaire to invest out here. So the best investments are found out here, and the worst investments are in here, stocks, bonds, savings, and all that. The key is to get out of the rat race onto the fast track is you had to understand a financial statement. And that's what the cash flow game teaches. So one of the keys of getting from the rat race to the fast track is, in many ways, this is the financial statement from the cash flow board game, and it is the only game in the world that teaches people the fundamentals of accounting: income, expense, assets, liability, and the statement of cash flow. And so that's what this game is designed to do, so that you would have the skill to be able to be an investor on the fast track. And we'll go into why this document here is so important at the end of the program here. But that's why we created this board game. It's not an easy game. I recommend, you know, you take about 4 hours to play it once. Then you play it about 4 different times. And then if you really want to get good, is you start teaching people, like, you know, 10 other people. The more you teach, the more you learn. And that's why the game was created. So it's basically, this is what my rich dad taught me years ago, so that you can teach yourself and teach others. And in my opinion, this is one of the ways we can minimize that huge transfer of wealth with so many poor people inside a great country that's going broke. So when people ask me, how do I get started, this is how I recommend you get started. And this is, here we have 4 people who've played my cash flow game and all this, but this is what it looks like. It looks like a Monopoly game. And there's a ritual I recommend to maximize your learning. So before you get started going in to start investing your hard-earned money, I recommend you start playing with paper money or fake money first, because it's a lot safer with, you know, play money. So what I recommend before you start the game is, what you start by saying is, let's say you don't know the people, you introduce yourself and you say such things as, you know, what my family taught me about, what I learned at home about money, stuff like this. Would you start that? What's your name?
My name is Anissa.
Anissa. We just start with that. That's a little ritual we have. See?
My name is Anissa, and what I learned about money at home is that money is very private, and it's not something that you want to discuss with anyone, even the professionals and other people that might help you grow it.
How many people have heard that at home? Good. Thank you. Very good. Next.
Hi, Robert. My name is Ron. And the thing I learned growing up is money does not grow on trees. Therefore, you should protect it.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Linda Taylor, and what I was taught was basically money doesn't grow on trees. Parents aren't made of money, so you can't afford certain things, so don't
How many
ask
people
for
were
it.
taught that you couldn't afford everything you wanted and stuff like that? Okay, thank you.
My name is John, and one of the things I learned from my grandparents who lived through the Depression was that you could count on pensions and you could count on Social Security.
How many people ever heard the same thing at your homes too? Good, thank you. That was my home because my parents went through the Depression. So let's say you play the game. It takes about 4 hours. I recommend you don't drink, you know, because or do other strange hallucinogenics and things like this, because this is not so much about fun. It is fun game, but it's really to enhance your learning and your financial IQ here. So once the game is over, take about 4 hours. Then I ask you to complete the game by saying something such as, what I learned from this game is tonight, or when you played it, or how this applies to my life is. So the game has to affect some part of your life now. So it is this ritual, and every time you play it, you go through that same ritual. You'll find out something new your parents told you, but at the end of the game, you'll find that it actually does affect your life. If it doesn't affect your life, it's just entertainment. If it does affect your life, it's education. So, and these people have already played the game, so would you mind sharing how the game has affected your life?
Sure. One of the things that I learned is start with the small deals first before you go into the big deals, because it will help you get over your fear of investing at all.
That's a very good lesson, because something I'll go into is a lot of times we have, especially men, you know, that they think investing is something of a ego trip or something. So on the game board you have small deals and you have big deals, and the men naturally go for the big deals. And what I say, the reason games are great teaching tools is very simply because games reflect your behavior. You know, like how many people have played a game and somebody was a poor sport, they threw temper tantrums and all that. That's a reflection of behavior. So with guys, I always see it. They always go for the big deal. They may be flat broke, but they want to play Tarzan or Rambo of investing, you know, and they go for that. Okay? Yes?
The thing I learned is when you play this a few times, it actually messes with your emotions when you start looking for deals. You see them in the real world, and it starts just pulling at you. I think it helps you deal with the emotions of doing deals.
That's right. It's a very big point, because as Warren Buffett says, if you cannot control your emotions, you cannot control your money. And so one of the main reasons people are not financially well off is they let their emotions either get to them. You're like, oh, I just got to have that dress, you know, or I just got to have that new car. Or a lot of times for parents, the child will come up to you and say, oh, you know, I got to have this. And the parents emotionally, you know, give to their kids and all that. So as Buffett says, if you cannot control your emotions in this game, you cannot control it in the real world. So that's a very good life lesson there.
What I learned is the difference between earned income and a passive income, and working for income is not very much fun, but having your money work for you is.
Right. Earned income is you working for money, which is the highest taxed income, and passive income is your money working for you, which is the lowest taxed income. So just learning that makes the game tremendously valuable, because at that point she starts to change the way she thinks, and she starts looking for passive income deals rather than working harder. As I said, one of the reasons of working harder is tough is because the more you work, the higher tax bracket you go into. If your money's working for you, you can pay zero taxes legally. And I do emphasize the word legally, you know, because you don't want to go to jail, because it's easier to make money outside of jail than inside of jail. What's you learned from playing this game?
The biggest thing that I learned is that you have to invest for cash flow, because without that you'll never get out of the rat race, you'll never win the game. That's
a very good one. The difference between cash flow versus capital gains. Both are important. And if you're a very successful active investor, you'll invest for both of them. But most people are investing for one or the other. So that's how you start the game by saying what your family taught you, and you end the game with what you learned, and that's what makes the game valuable. Give a big hand for these people here. Thank you. So in moving on, I'd like to bring up my partner here. She's also my co-author, and that's Sharon Lecter. Would you please, big hand for Sharon, please? Now, I want to give credit where credit's due. Is when I turned Rich Dad, Poor Dad over to her, it was about 350 pages of swear words. And Sharon is the A student and I am the F student. Okay, so that's why we work as a great partnership here. But she took Rich Dad, Poor Dad and cut it down to under 200 pages and then made it an international bestseller. So I did write the book. Sharon did have to clean it up quite a bit, you know, because I am a former Marine. I don't speak with the kindness of language. But the reason I wanted Sharon to speak at this point here is because, as I said to some of you, I really did not like school. You know, I was a C, D, and F student, where Sharon was the A student. And during school, I always sat next to people like Sharon. And nothing's changed now that I'm an adult, you know what I mean? Because I always sat next to the A student so I could, you know, get past my tests. So would you mind talking about why you're happy with this product here, you know, Teach to be Rich and
Absolutely.
Education important?
And Robert's right. You know, he was disenfranchised as a child, and I, guilty as charged, I was a straight A student. I was a neurotic straight A student. And I am now a recovering A student. So if any of you would like to join my club. But my passion came not from my experience at school, because I was one of the few that could excel in that environment. Don't know why. But I have 3 children with Michael, and all 3 of them struggled in that school system. So how many of you are parents? How many of you had parents? Thank you, thank you. Like 100% participation. I saw my children lose their interest in learning. How many of you can agree with that? Okay. Our world has changed. We as parents have changed. Our school system has not changed. And I get very emotional about that because that is my passion. And we've built this company to give an alternative not only to you, but to you as parents, as grandparents, as aunts and uncles, to help change the future of our children. Because if they stay in school, they will not get financial education unless you provide it to them. We have a lot of initiatives that are starting, and there are some wonderful teachers out there, teachers that are seeking this information, but not enough. And as parents, we didn't do what we needed to with our children, and I want to make sure the information is there for you as parents to provide a valid future for your kids. And this is really, as we talked earlier, is a new era for Rich Dad. Because it's not just about you making money. It's about you not only learning how to bring financial freedom to yourself, but also how you can bring that financial freedom to others. And we talk about team sport. As a straight A student, you did not want to make a mistake. How many of you can relate to that? The fear of failure. Even if I made it, I wouldn't admit it. How many of you are guilty of that? You know, I'll find an excuse and justify it any way I can because I want to be right. That was pounded into me. But I also learned in school that you had to go it alone. How many of you know that feeling? You have to do it by yourself. That's what we teach our children. However, I was the popular kid at test time. I had a lot of friends the few days before tests, and it's the group, it's that the advisors, being able to work together. And this information helps you, gives you the type of education that you've heard today from Robert, and you're going to continue hearing it, about why straight A students aren't all rich. I love the section that says, don't teach pigs to sing.
What she's talking about here is this, is I would not have written a book on education if it wasn't fun. And I wanted to make it really fun, but also you have to be very careful on who you taught. So that's why I said don't teach pigs to sing, because how many people have ever tried to teach something to somebody when they didn't want to learn it? You know, it's really frustrating, it's demoralizing. That's why I have that. But make it also fun, you know?
Absolutely. And I just want to tell a quick story because we have so much more to share with you. But the game that you just saw these people play, I had the honor of coming to the first beta test when it was drawn on a piece of paper, and actually Robert will show it to you a little later, with my daughter who was 19 at the time. And we had 3 tables of people playing, and there were some pretty upset people in that room. They were saying everything that was wrong with the game. One of them was my husband. And there were bankers in the room, you know, very frustrated, couldn't get out of the rat race. And I'm sitting next to my daughter at a different table, and she's asking me questions, and I think, gosh, this is really good stuff. And I will admit, as a straight A student, I was the only one that got out of the rat race. I'm kind of proud of that. But we had to leave early that day, because those of you who have teenage daughters, you know what it's like when you say, let's go play a financial board game. But we had another date, so we left, and I thought, this is fabulous. We walk out the door closes, and I'm waiting for my daughter to kind of give me a hard time, because I promised her 2 hours, and we were now 4 hours. She says, Mom, that game was awesome. That game, I learned more in the last 3 hours than I have in the last 3 years of high school. I had just met Robert and Kim that day. But I had been working with the school systems inside the system, which is frustrating, very frustrating, to get financial education into the school system for about 5 years. And it was the day that I met Robert and I saw that game that I knew Cash Flow, the board game, the Rich Dad information can change your life, but most importantly, it can change the future for our children.
So some of the other titles in education, I've been teaching since 1980 professionally. It's over 25 years. But you don't teach pigs to sing. Why A students don't become rich. You know, Sharon didn't like that chapter that much. But anyway.
It was really tough.
The other one is why you cannot teach poor people to be rich. And there's so many people want to save the poor, but you know, if they don't want to learn, you can't teach them anything. So that's unfortunate. And the last one is how to increase your financial intelligence. And the last one beyond that is finding your financial genius. So that's what this book is about. It's not traditional education, I want to promise you that. It's about making learning fun and exciting and beneficial to real life. So Sharon has her pet project is, when you look at the cash flow board game over here, one thing talks about charity, the need to give back. And the Rich Dad company practices what it preaches. You want to talk about Rich Kid, Smart Kid?
Absolutely. In everything we do, in everything that Robert teaches, Rich Dad message is, the more you give, the more you receive. So from the beginning of time when we started this company, all of our products discuss the importance of charity. And as a company, we have developed a website called richkidsmartkid.com. And it came from, if I can take a moment and tell the story, we came out with a Cash Flow for Children, Cash Flow for Kids board game about 5 years ago. We live here in Arizona. We went to the superintendent of education and said, we would like to donate Cash Flow for Kid board games for every elementary school in the state of Arizona.
This is the board game, and this is the electronic version of it. You can play over the web.
And we were in the office of the superintendent of education for the state of Arizona, Robert and I, just like this, and she said to us, it's too much trouble. Both of us went, but you know, all things happen for a reason. It made me so mad. It made me so mad. I said, okay, how can we get around the institution of education? It's not the teachers, it's the institution.
Yeah, and as my father being a teacher, the reason they cannot teach this stuff is very simply because the government dictates what is taught to the kids. The teachers have no power over that. So that's when Sharon and I walked out, and I kind of smiled and said, see why I don't like school? You know, she goes, yeah. But a big reason then was, we're not blaming the teachers, it is the system. Does that make sense, you guys here? And the teachers have no power over what's to be taught. The government dictates that. Okay.
So we took that no and the anger that we had and said, how can we still accomplish what we want to accomplish? We created richkidsmartkid.com, which is a website with financial education, totally with curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade. It is available to schools around the world and to you as parents around the world. And it is for free. There is no charge. through that website, if you are a school, you can also get a downloadable version of the Cash Flow for Kids board game for free. Again, anywhere in the world. So 15 months after we got a no, through another direction, the electronic website, Rich Kid Smart Kid, was available to every student in Arizona around the system through their desktops. So we turned it, and then we're able to leverage that and offer it to the world. And I'm very happy to say we've had over 2 million students play Rich Kid Smart Kid.
Yeah. So that's the piece on education. Like I said, I would not have written a book, Teach to Be Rich, if it was going to be boring like school. Let's make it fun and exciting and all this. So when we come back, we'll go into how to be an active investor and take control of your investments. So thank you very much, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Investor, educator, and author Robert Kiyosaki has changed millions of lives all over the world. His book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has been on the New York Times bestseller list for over 5 years. We all know that the gap between the haves and the have-nots is growing, and Social Security and Medicare are in a financial mess. And just affording to live is getting expensive. So how does a person get ahead financially? The answer is raising your financial IQ and having your money work for you. Here's Robert Kiyosaki with Rich Dad's Teach to Be Rich.
Welcome back, and as you notice, we have a couple more props up on stage here. But going into it quickly is in 1974, as I said, the world changed. In 1974, employees had to become investors through the 401k and mutual funds and all that. And unfortunately, our school systems don't teach us much about finances or how to invest. And because they don't teach us much about it, most people think investing is risky. And what they fail to understand that risk is, investing isn't risky, being uneducated is risky. Well, my rich dad said, there's no such thing as a bad investment, there's only bad investors. Or there's no such thing as a risky investment, there's only risky investors. And the reason I say that, as a professional investor, you can ask Kenny, we're always looking for bad investments, we're not looking for good ones. Because a bad investment is where you make your money. Because that's what we do, it reduces your risk. So really what risk is this, is no control. And so if you look at the qualifications I ran up earlier in the program between a passive investor and an active investor, passive investors have no control. That's why they think investing is risky. And the riskiest of all investments are, again, savings, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, because you have no control over them. So to understand this better, we're going to use the example of learning how to drive a car. How many people realize that there is some risk in driving a car? But how many people still drive a car every day? Right. So the reason driving a car, while there's risk, doesn't have to be risky, is when you walk up to a car, the first thing you